All right, so welcome everyone to our webinar, the top 5 things you are missing in your business. And it's going to be in the different areas of social media, marketing, and business. So with that, let's start with some general information here. So I'm sure you've been to many Zoom calls by now, but let's take a look and locate the chat box, which is located at the bottom of the screen. There is a ruler there, and there should be the chat box. So go ahead and locate the chat box and say something to us. Go ahead and type hello or your name, your business name, so we can see who is here. We always like to hear from you. Okay, thank you. Yes. All right. Okay. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Hi, Beth.
Hi, everyone. Good to have you here. Rick. Hello, Rick. Okay, great to have. It's always good to, we can't see you, but to hear that you're here with familiar faces. Awesome. Fantastic. Good. So now we have another button next to it, which is the question and answer. So that's where you can type your questions. And we're going to answer you throughout the webinar. And also we have time for Q&A at the end. This is an interactive webinar, so definitely we would like to hear from you. We'd like to hear comments throughout. If you have questions, type them in as we are speaking so we can answer you as appropriate when the question is applicable. And then there's going to be a survey at the end. So we're going to put the chat box at the end of the webinar. We're going to put a survey. So please take time, about a minute, to tell us how we did and any feedback that you would like to give us. There is also, we're going to give out a free worksheet and also free consultation. So each one of us, you can schedule a free consultation with any one of us, with all of us. So when you get the survey, you can tick the boxes that you would like to schedule a free consultation, and we'll be happy to contact you to do that. All right, so the presenters today. So my name is Adi, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Business Success Consulting Group. And we specialize in systematizing businesses and implementing processes and procedures. And Mark?
Hey guys, my name is Mark Savage. I'm the owner of Cornerstone Web Studio, doing digital marketing, website design, SEO, making sure you guys are found when people are looking for you on Google.
Good. And Brandy?
Hi, I'm Brandy Henry, and I am owner of Engaging on Social Media, where I help business owners do their own social media. So lots of training and consulting, and it's a lot of fun.
Great. All right, so our objective for you today is for you to walk out of here with specific things that you can do in order to improve your social media, your marketing, and your business in general. Here's our agenda. So as we said, it's 5 things. So each one of us is actually going to cover the 5 things in our respective areas that are costing you money or are not making your business as efficient as it can be. And we're going to start with Brandy with social media, then Mark in marketing, and myself for general business optimization and efficiency. Then we're going to have time for questions and answers, and we're going to let you know how you can work with us. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pass it over to Brandy to start us off with telling us.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to get us going here. And so I'm going to talk about the 5 top mistakes I see in social media, or the use of social media or lack thereof. So that's what my topic is. I actually enjoy social media, and I think it's a wonderful platform. We have this amazing tool to have a voice and share what it is that we do in the world, because the reason you do what you do in the world, there's a passion behind that and a love of something there that you're wanting to help people with. So that's fantastic. And social media gives us that opportunity to have tools that we can access for free. So we're going to dive in. Here we go. First, like I was saying, thanks for being here. I do appreciate it when people give it a chance to talk to you and help you out and answer questions about social media. It's messy, kind of can be very stressful at times, lots going on, and oftentimes simply choosing what not to pay attention to and what to focus on is the biggest steps with social media. So just a quick clarification. today, and what I teach on is the content of what you're putting out into the world. So that's the stuff that's free. So when you post a picture or you put out a newsletter or put up a blog, that's content, and you're putting that out into the world for free versus paid ads. Paid ads are their own art form. People who specialize in Facebook ads, Instagram ads, LinkedIn ads, those people are specialists, and that is not in my wheelhouse. I can talk the lingo and help you get ready for it, but that's not what my area of expertise is in. My focus will be helping you successfully use the free tools, like what do we post and how do we engage on the platforms. So let's do it. All right. So first two mistakes I see the most common, and these, I mean, no guilt here. We're all human and we've got a lot going on. And that would be consistency and also responding. So consistency matters. Once we choose a platform that you want to use to get attention, to share with the world what it is that you're doing and what you have to offer and how you can help people, you got to be consistent with it. Social media can be a long runway, and you need to, regularly, and what do I mean by regularly? A couple times a week, you're posting, you're engaging with other people, and you're there. I know we don't always like to hear about the algorithm. It does notice if you've been away a while, or you're not posting as regularly, or you're not engaging, or you're not interacting. On the flip side of that, it rewards you for being consistent. And because why do those platforms do it? Because they appreciate you keeping other people on their platform. That's really what's in it for them. So be sure that you're consistent and get those posts up. And then the other mistake I often see is not responding to comments and direct messages. And what do I mean by that? So you put a post out in the world, or a blog, or something visual or a video, and somebody says, hey, this was great, really helpful, or ask a question, and then you don't answer that. I really insist that everybody answer those comments. A simple thank you, answer the question, maybe even engage them further. Like, oh, I appreciate that. Do you want to know more about it? Make sure that you're responding to those comments, because it does matter. Somebody will notice that you didn't answer. And then if you're getting direct messages that you're not responding to, that's also another kind of, I don't know if I want to call it a no-no, but it's definitely a red flag. If somebody's reaching out to you about what you do and how you do it, and you're not responding, and those direct messages on the platforms go unanswered, it doesn't look very good. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to those messages, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever platform it is, and you're responding. Even if you have to respond with, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, it's been a couple weeks since I've checked messages, I'm here, and you're ready to help the person out. So be sure that if you're on a platform, in other words, if you have a presence on any platform, that you're checking those messages. All right, we're going to move next. Oh, and one more. So if somebody tags you in a post, make sure that you thank them for that and respond to it. Because why? We want them to tag us again. That increases activity, increases visibility of what we do. So if somebody tags you in a post, go check it out and then thank them for it, or intentionally not thank them for it. Sometimes you can get tagged as one of 75 other people who were tagged, and you'll have to make your own judgment on that one. Here's another one that I see that doesn't happen, is shouting out other people. There are a lot of people involved in the success of what you do, whether it's a supplier, or it's the bookkeeper, or even possibly the landlord. There's a lot of people involved in the success of your business, your employees, your customers or clients, or the patients. Give them shout outs, unless there's a HIPAA issue. Be sure you're on top of that, but shout them out. Tell the world about how they help you and what's so great about them. Be sure to tag them on that. And it's a great thing I see, or don't see, I should say, happening enough. And so what is a shout out? Let's get a little deeper into this. So a shout out is a post that you put up under, on your account, on your platform, that could be giving kudos to your paper supplier, thinking of the office, of course, or the professionals near you who help you out, whether it's your business coach, or even if you're blessed to have somebody come that cleans your offices for you at night. And the clients and customers that are regulars or contribute to your success, give them a shout out, say thank you. And other ways you can cheer others on are to post about the charitable organizations or community events that you're involved in or you want people to hear about, whether it's, a recycling event or a food drive or the neighborhood parade. All of those things you can put up a post about, because it's still your business shouting out someone else, and that, it looks good and it's a great way to build community. And be sure when you do that to tag the people that you're shouting out so that they know that you did it. So how do we tag others and why? So tagging somebody, I'm going to do a quick clarification. To tag somebody is not the same as a hashtag. So to tag somebody is specifically getting that one person or that one business's attention. And why do we want to tag someone in our post? Well, tagging them lets them know that you mentioned them in the post, that you were probably shouting them out or contributing to, if they're part of an event that you're doing, or they're contributing to a big project or have contributed to it. If you're going to mention them, might as well tag them. And hopefully not only will they see it, but they'll share it. That's really a great thing to do. And you'll get to know the people who do reciprocate and tag you back or also share your post. And those are good reciprocal relationships to have on a social media platform. So how do we do that? Well, most of us are probably most familiar with Facebook, and sometimes you start to type somebody's name and it assumes it knows who you want or who you mean. And sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not, or it doesn't catch on that you're trying to type in somebody's name. Well, what I suggest for that is then to start with that @ sign. And then it's like, okay, she or he is trying to tag somebody. And that's a good way to work with that. And that is pretty much cross-platform. So if you're having a hard time getting a platform to recognize that you're tagging somebody, start with that @ sign and then start typing their name. Another thing that I see as a mistake on social media is letting people know how you're different. Yes, they need to know that you're qualified and you know what you're doing and you're reliable and all of those good things. But how are you different? How do you serve your clients or customers or patients in ways that are different, better, in your opinion, than your competitors? How are you the right person or the right person for the right person? In other words, how is your practice different? How is the way that you show up for your clients or the level of in-depth or skill level that you provide different than others? How is it that your business stands out? What is it that makes your business different? Highlight those things. Share that on social media. You always want to let people know that, of course, you're qualified, but also how you're different. How is it going to be different choosing you over somebody else? So we're going to recap, and then I get to pass on the baton, the webinar baton. So our recap is pretty quick. Consistency. If you need to, put it on your calendar. Be sure that if you're going to be on a platform and you're trying to build up presence and engagement, you're going to have to be consistent. Answer messages and comments. Even if you have to put that on your calendar, set aside some time to just make sure that if somebody's messaged you or made comments that you're responding. Shout outs and tagging. Recognize those involved with your success and tag them so they know that you did. And making sure people also know how you're different. How is it that what you provide is different than your competition? Whoops, different is good. I think I forgot to change one of my little squares here, so I apologize for that. And make sure that they know how you are different, and it matters because that's how you do your business and what your heart is in it for. So be sure to shine a light on how you care for your clients, customers, and patients differently than others. So that is my bit. Throw those questions into that Q&A box, and I'll be back after Mark and Adi.
Nice job, Brandy.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, let's jump into this. Sorry for the audio. As you well know, things tend to die, break, and go offline right at the last minute. So you get kind of full sound from my office here. Let's jump right into this and screen share. Okay, guys. How's that look? Everything's looking good? Great. All right, so I thought I would make this simple. I mean, I was telling Brandy before this started, I'm so jealous. Every time we do a webinar together, I'm more and more jealous on how awesome her slides are. So I thought I would just give up on the slides, try to bring you as much meat on the stick as possible and just stick to what I'm good at. So today we're gonna talk about the 5 most common marketing mistakes that I see in small businesses. And I will tell you, I know already you guys are thinking on the call, these aren't me, I don't make these mistakes, but oftentimes, you know, I think we're a lot like that guy in the pickup truck down there. Like, how's business, John? Oh, it's fantastic, man. I'm halfway to my goal. Not realizing your back wheels are off a cliff, and no matter how hard you push the gas with the wrong strategy, you're never going to get where you're going. So let's dive right into these great points. Number 1, no marketing at all. You know, the one common thread I see through businesses is that not having a marketing budget almost feels like a badge of honor to some people. Like, you say, hey, how are you growing your business? Everybody can type this in the chat bar. We already know what I'm going to say. Word of mouth, baby. Word of mouth. I don't do any marketing. And it's like this badge of honor that says, hey, my business is so good. My services are so good that all I have to do is just do what I do. And people love me. They talk about me. And I get word of mouth business. And I will tell you guys, my favorite business, my favorite clients are referrals. Absolutely, hands down, I agree with you. But not having any marketing at all just tells me that you haven't really thought through the idea, the concept of word of mouth. So I'm going to help you do that right now. Let's say that Jane, John, and April all say, like, I need a dentist, right? So they're going to their friends, they're asking, what dentist should I go to? Word of mouth marketing. Do you think that those 3 people are all going to recommend you? Well, probably not. They're probably going to recommend the dentist they like, the dentist they like, the dentist they like, right? Word of mouth marketing. We tend not to ask just one person. We ask multiple people that we trust. Well, in that case, what are you going to do? You're going to be left to try to make a decision between the referrals that you got. So it's 2020, most likely you're going to go online, you're going to look at their website, right? You're going to look at their social media page and figure out who has that kind of, who's got the right equipment, who looks professional, who's close by. All of those factors are going to play in. But when you actually make a decision, you're going to go and they're going to say, hey, how did you hear about us? And they're going to say word of mouth. But there was a process on how to get them there. So you are marketing all the time, whether you want to or not. Now, marketing doesn't imply you're going to have to spend money on it, right? It just implies that you need to have a professional path so that as you're getting more and more recommended in the community, that person can follow that path and it will lead them more often than not to choosing you and not the 2 other people that were referred as well. So that's like having a great website, making sure your receptionist or whoever answers the phone is professional and nice and knows how to smile through the conversation. That is probably the biggest mistake I see because, guys, it's like having a bad blind date. We know when somebody shows up to our business and has a good experience, but we have no idea how many people came by, had a bad blind date with our website or our receptionist, and then bounced off the business, right? And so I'm encouraging you all, if you don't learn anything else from me today, think about if somebody was going to give you a word of mouth referral right now, what would the process be to get them into being a client? And make sure you get the broom out and sweep that path along the way. Number 2, having a marketing budget. Now, this sounds kind of counterintuitive, especially coming from a marketing company, but I recommend not having a marketing budget at all. Here's why. More often than not, I get the question, hey, I can only spend 10% on marketing. I don't know who came up with that. It's probably somebody famous who was like a billionaire and everybody thought, hey, if I spend 12%, I'm doing something wrong. It's 10%. This guy said 10%. Guys, your marketing budget should be solely dependent on your goals. if you're at capacity, and you're getting great word of mouth business, then you don't need a marketing budget at all, right? Because you're already hitting your goal. But if you're halfway to your goal, and you know that you've really solidly dialed in, say, a Google AdWords account, and you're no longer spending frivolous dollars and it's working, but you're not making as much headway as you want, spend 20%. As long as you know that money's not like mud against the wall, and you know it's being spent effectively and efficiently, because that's the first step, right? Dialing in the efficiencies, but that's a whole nother webinar. Once you've got that, your budget can be whatever you need it to be to hit that goal in the amount of time you want it to be. So for instance, if you said, hey, I only want to spend 10%, then you're basically limiting your goals, or you're overshooting your goals. So don't think about it like that. Change your mindset back to, what am I trying to do with the business? When am I trying to do it? How am I going to get an approach that works, that's efficient, that's scalable to get me to that goal? And then pour in as much dollars as you need to in order to hit the goal in the time frame that you want, right? All right, so number 3. Now, this
Mark, there was actually a question about that, and I think you answered. So I think it was Lisa that asked that question in terms of like the marketing budget itself. Mm-hmm. So basically no limit to a certain number, right? So, but the other part of the question was, should it be tied into a return on investment in terms of like figure out the budget?
So if I understand the question, look, guys, we all need a solid cost per acquisition for a new client. It does not make sense if you're in the HVAC repair business and all you're going to make on a service call is $99. It doesn't make sense to spend $200 to acquire that client.
Right.
Funny enough, you're jumping ahead, because we're going to get into tracking here in a second. But yes, all efficiency is definitely the key. It's just, we could spend 45 minutes on each type of marketing you're doing. And honestly, I could spend hours with each one of you with each type of marketing that you're doing to make sure that it is efficient, because so many people just throw mud against the wall and they don't realize that they could be getting a much better return on investment. But yeah, Adi, you're absolutely right. Once it's efficient and you know that you have a scalable marketing scheme, then you can start to increase that budget.
Excellent, thank you. And I hope that answers the question. If not, ask us another one, and definitely keep the questions coming. We like it when it's midway like this, when real life questions. Yes.
Yeah, just to segue to that, I think Lisa had wrote in a question earlier, and it was about like where do businesses start when it comes to a Google AdWords account when they're a small business and they're just getting into things. And usually what a company will do, and this will give you a practical application of this number 2 principle here. Most companies will say, okay, well, what's the area? What's your goal? And what's your budget? And in essence, you're just giving them the keys to the kingdom to say, well, I'm comfortable spending $1,000, or I'm comfortable spending $750. And I want to service all of, say, the Portland area. But that's really the wrong way to go about it. That's just a sales approach from a marketing company trying to push you into a corner to say, well, you wanted Portland, you're willing to spend $750. I wrote up the order, sign here and we'll go for it. The real kind of case for cause here is you've got to go into the market size that you want, find out what the appropriate budget is, and then see if you can afford it. And if for some reason you can't afford it, well, then you simply cut back the size of the territory you're going to market to, so that you can always be dominant in the area you're marketing in, right? And that way you're going to get more cash flow. So like, you might think, oh man, well, I'm only in this small section of town, but you're number 1 there. And then you use that cash flow, and in 3 months, you're in half of the town, and then in 3/4 of the town, etc. But every time you make a jump, you're dominant in that jump. So that's what I would recommend in shifting your marketing budget. Now, this one I found funny because I was actually reading an article in Forbes a while back. And of course, Cornerstone, more than half of our business is building websites. We absolutely love building websites, and we got a lot of creatives around here. And so it's something we really enjoy doing. Forbes, at the kind of late 2019 timeframe, said not having a website was the number 1 marketing mistake that small businesses were making. I cannot agree with this more. It's really common to hear things like, well, I just use the Facebook page, or I only get word of mouth referrals. And so I'm telling you right now, if you don't think your website is important, now some of you are on the call and you're like, I couldn't live without a website because half my business revolves around the website. But for the other half, it's kind of maybe feels like a luxury. Trust me, it's not. When you get that initial call from a potential client, for one, you want them to be able to find you easily. The website's going to really help do that if it's built well. But two, and most importantly, once they find you, the website is their first impression of your business. I don't care how great you are at auto repair. If your website looks like you suck at it, they won't translate. They will think you're bad at your job, even though you train other mechanics to do their job. So that is the first point of contact, is where trust and professionalism is built. And then when you jump on the phone with somebody and you say, hey, that transmission is going to cost $4,000 to replace, think about how they're going to react to that statement, whether they think that you're the guy or not, right? Like if they trust you and you say it's 4,000, they're like, well, Jake said it's $4,000 and he's the man. So I'm going to go with it. Or I don't really, okay, I'll call anyway. They're close to home, but I don't trust these guys. This looks like it was built in the 80s, $4,000, you got to be kidding. I'm going to get other quotes. So make it easy on yourself. Have a very professional website that will give the reputation of the business that you want. And number 4, this is a hard one for everybody. I think Brandy and I have been on maybe 4 or 5 webinars now, and I mention this on every webinar, whether it's like things to do, mistakes to make. You got to make sure you're tracking results. And the reason I say this is hard for people is because more often than not, they don't know how. They don't know where to start. They don't understand the marketing that they're doing anyway, and that's okay. I mean, that's a reason why you hire a marketing agency. And I say it's okay, but that's just to get you guys all off the hook. Honestly, you should never hire somebody that you don't really understand what they're doing. If you don't understand what they're doing, then you have no idea when you're going to get screwed, right? I mean, let's just call it like it is. My dad always used to say this about being an auto mechanic, and I didn't listen. I went and spent like $300 to replace like a connector part in the front of my car. And when he pulled up the hood, I'm like, literally, you didn't even have to bend over. He's like, well, yeah, but you hired me to do it. Had I gone on, looked at a YouTube video, I would have realized it's in anybody's skill set to do that job and save $300. And try to get into, if you're going to do a Google Ads account, if you're going to get into SEO, especially with an agency, they're not there just to sell you and start doing the work. They're there to provide a knowledge base so you know what they're doing. So having given you that PSA, the next thing is you got to be able to track your results. Now, there's only 2 roads to go, right? You're going to do this on your own. You're not track your results. You're going to have a marketing plan that you're going to implement on your own, or you're going to hire a professional to do it. Now, in both cases, I'm right? I mean, if you're going to do it on your own, you should know what you're doing. And if you're hiring somebody, they should tell you what they're doing on a monthly basis in a report. And caveat, a report, please, that doesn't change, right? It remains the same so you can actually tell what they're doing. You can see the ups, and trust me, you need to see the downs as well. You don't want to get graphs that were this type of graph that time and this type of graph this time, because they're trying to hide the downs from you, right? Tracking your results, let me give you 2 pieces of advice here. One is Google Analytics. It's very easy. You should have access to it. If somebody's maintaining your website, or if they're doing any kind of SEO, or they're doing Google Ads, all that stuff ties into Google Analytics. So it's a very easy place for you to get acquainted with. It's really obvious what's going on. And honestly, guys, if you want like a free 15, 20 minutes, jump on a call, we'll jump on a GoToMeeting. I'll teach you everything you need to know about Google Analytics in like a half an hour, okay? But it will empower you to be able to make decisions, know what to do with your marketing budget, know whether to fire your marketing company. You need that empowerment. You can't have that unless you don't track your results. And the other thing I would say is call tracking. Everything revolves around a phone call these days. So not only do you want to track the phone call, but you want to track the actual recording of the phone call so you can tell who's calling, how long was the duration, and how did the conversation go. Most of the call tracking programs these days will actually have notes as well. So you can say this led to business, and you can even say how much. So at the end of the month, it's not just you got 60 phone calls, it's you got 34 phone calls that were over a minute in duration, and 22 of those led to business. And not only that, but those 22 led to an average of $4,000 per. And so I made 80 grand. I spent 6 to get that. You can do an ROI calculation and make sure that it's worth it for you. Once you see that being scalable, going back to number 2, then you can know with confidence, you can increase that marketing budget, and it's not hurting you, it's helping you. So one last one. This is more of a creative thing, but it is so important for you guys to know this. A couple of years ago in the marketing world, we were all waiting for these lines to intersect. And the lines we were waiting for was, at what point, I think it was 2016, 2015, when mobile search and mobile users overtook desktop. So for number 5, I had to write stop, or not thinking mobile first. Yeah, because most people think like a desktop website, oh, it looks good, you know. You have to think mobile first. Let me show you a quick example and we'll end with this. If it'll, let me switch. There we go. All right. So while you're looking at this graphic, you'll see a couple of things on here. When I talk mobile first, keep in mind, here are the stats. Right now, 50% of people are already on there. This is worldwide stat. This isn't necessarily for your business, but guess what? If you're tracking your results, Google Analytics will tell you what it is for your website, and you'll know how important it is or not. But 50% right now will be on a mobile device, 46% on a desktop, and the stragglers will be on an iPad. So what do I mean by mobile first? Well, this is a really, really simple concept that all of us can get. What I'm talking about is a really solid user experience on your cell phone. Have you ever gotten into that car accident or like almost hit the person in the crosswalk because you were pinching and zooming to find the phone number? And we've all done it. I had to apologize to that gal at the window. Don't do that to people. For crying out loud, look at this middle one. You see how it's really nice? It's got a call to action. It still has a picture, right? We want to evoke emotion, show that we're professional. Welcome to Anderson Dental Center, and then boom, tap to call. Very easy. So however you want people to, whether it's, you know, tap to email us, tap to text us, tap to call us. What I want to do, or what I want to get across to you guys, if I don't anything else when it comes to mobile first, is right now, pick up your phone, go to your website. I'll give you a minute, do it. Now, while you're doing that, what kind of experience are you giving somebody? Is it a litany of words that nobody's going to read? And then the phone number is like nowhere to be found? Maybe it's just the logo. There's no emotional connection, no photo to really like say what they just clicked on. Is there a phone number, but it's way down the phone and they're going to have to scroll around? Or worse yet, you don't have to tell us who you are in the chat box. Do you have to do this? You know, the old pinching in, which I find fascinating that my like 3-year-old can do this now because she's learning how to do that on the iPad. It's like, who taught you that? But you shouldn't be doing that on your business's website ever. If you are, it is definitely time for a new website. And when you hire a web designer, make sure they have a mobile first mentality, because more often than not, you're going to find that 70+% of your traffic is going to see what you're seeing right here in the middle. A couple of other quick tips. You can use, well, your web designer will use some code to block out some of the text, for instance, on your website. So you might have 1,500 words on a page in the desktop, and you might cut that down to 500 words on the mobile. Photos also change. You know, if you're uploading photos that are much bigger on the desktop, you want to make sure that you or your web designer are using a different photo that's the same version, but it's shrunk down for a phone so that your phone can load very quickly. So I think all of us are experts in this because all of us are internet users. So simply jump on your own website, look at the homepage, and without doing anything, can you become your own client? Can you reach out to you without doing anything? If you can't, it might be time to look at a website. Guys, I hope that you got something out of these top 5 most common marketing mistakes. And with that, I'll leave it over to Adi.
Thank you, Mark. That was excellent. Very good. Okay, so now let's go over 5 things that are missing in execution. I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. So the first thing is no plan. When you don't have a plan, how can you execute, right? A plan will be a roadmap that how to get from point A to point B. And it can be you have to have a strategic plan. And then from there, you have to have a tactical plan on how to execute it. But if you do not have a plan, even what to do, you have to have plans on what to do during a certain day. So you, like, for instance, today is Thursday, started the day. Did you write a plan of what you want to execute today? If you didn't, then most likely this day is just going to be the same as every other day in terms of like doing the things you need to do. But at the end of the day, you ask yourself, did I really achieve the goal of what I wanted? And if the answer is no, if you have things that are still there on your to-do list, or things that you decided to do at the beginning of the year, beginning of the month, beginning of the week, and are not executed, is because you didn't have a plan. So having a plan is very, very important. Next one is no systems. If you want to execute something, you have to have a system on how to execute it. You have to have a step-by-step system. And that system can be how you organize your office, how you organize your day. It can be a system, a wider system in terms of automation, a system that you can automate, that you are automating some tasks. It can be a system on how you keep track of your leads. How do you keep track of the referrals? Like Mark was mentioning, the number one thing that people think about is, well, they get leads to referrals, right? Somebody referred to me, or it's word of mouth. How do you keep track of those referrals? So if you don't have a system to do that, you most likely are going to lose on, it's going to be lost business. You're going to lose on referrals. You're going to lose on opportunities. So you have to develop systems on how to keep track of things, on how to deliver, on how to get back to your customers, to your clients in a timely manner. What's your system of keeping track of the customers that you have? Or let's say there is a different stages of the delivery for a client. What system are you using to figure out where they're at? What systems are you using in order to figure out when the client is done with the service that you provided? Or if it's a product, when is it time to reach out again for them to buy another product? So there are different systems that need to be present in your company, in your organization, in order to be able to execute your overall plan, or your overall idea, or your overall vision. The next step is no processes and procedures. So if you do not have, it goes together with the systematization. If you do not have a very clear way of how you do things, how are you going to train your staff? How are you going to be able to make sure that every single time your customers, your clients, your patients are going to have the same experience? How are you going to be able to train new staff? How are you going to be able to onboard successfully? How are you going to be able to make sure that your business is actually scaling and growing? And at some point, if you have an exit strategy, that you will be able to exit the business correctly by being able to pass it on so it's sustainable, so it can continue. That all comes down to processes and procedures. And the next one, no accountability. I've seen it over and over again with clients that we work with, in terms of like, they have a plan, they might have some processes and procedures. So let's say we came and wrote processes and procedures for them, and they're all excited about them. It's great. Now we know how we do things. We have a better system for training. We have a better system for onboarding. We have a better system for customer service, let's say. But then if it's not being executed, if you do not have your entire team on board to do that, and there is no accountability internally for yourself and also internally within the group, then it's just not going to work. That is really the make-break point of a business, is the accountability, is actually executing what you said you're going to be executing. So I'll give you an example. So I just finished a project with documenting the sales processes for a big manufacturing organization. And now we are launching into the accessibility and implementation stage, where I'm actually going to have calls with each one, with the leadership team, with the sales leadership team, and also customer service. Every Monday morning, first thing, we're going to go over what happened throughout the week in terms of the implementation in terms of processes and procedures, and the implementation of those processes and procedures, or anything that happened throughout the week that wasn't optimum. And then we're going to take a look at whether it was a process problem or a people problem. Does the process exist and it wasn't not followed, or the process doesn't exist? So we go down this decision tree to decide whether we need to provide more training, we need to write better processes. So all of that comes under accountability. Everyone has to come on Monday morning with their story of what happened throughout the week and their accountability to execute the processes and procedures that got documented. The next one, the number 5, is no review. Meaning, if you already establish your systems, you have a great plan, you establish the systems, you establish your processes and procedures, and you have an accountability system. Now you need to review those systems, you need to review those processes and procedures at a certain interval, whether it's quarterly, semi-annually, annually. Sometimes you have to review it every week because things change, especially in an environment like now when you had to adapt, you had to pivot. How do you know if it really works or doesn't work? So you need to make sure that you have implemented also a system for reviewing what you're doing. And like Mark mentioned, you have to have those KPIs. You have to have metrics and a way to measure what you're doing. So when you're reviewing whether the process is working or not working, you have to make sure that it's based upon facts, that you actually look at specific numbers, that you know what you're looking at. What are you measuring to see if it is successful or not successful? And you also have to look if the things you are measuring, is it something that happened in the past or something that is what it's called a leading indicator, something that is actually going to help you to predict the future and see what will happen. So reviewing your systems and making sure that you have things that measure those systems is very, very important. So that is my part in terms of 5 things that are missing in execution. And with that, I'd like to open now the floor for questions, and we're going to answer those. I already saw some questions coming in as we were talking, and there was already a question that Brandy answered before, etc. And while you are typing your questions in the box, I am going to put in the chat box, I'm going to put a link to the survey. And I would love for each one of you, I would ask you to take a couple of minutes to answer that, so you can let us know what was your biggest takeaway from this webinar. And also, if you'd like a consultation with us, you can tick those boxes. All right, so now let's go into our Q&A.
One question that I received was if we should have an image with every post. And generally speaking, yeah, images tell a story, and they can grab attention. They can say a lot about what you're doing, and they don't have to be fantastic. If you check out the Oregon Food Bank's presence on LinkedIn, you'll see that the content that gets the most engagement are not the best pictures, quality speaking, but they tell the story of the hard work that Oregon Food Bank does. And that's a great example of why always have an image, because it's part of the story and it really what draws us in. It's kind of like the adage of the cover on a book. We often choose it, what we're going to read based on that cover. That picture, I would say, yeah, most of the time have an image. It does draw people in, and trust yourself that your phone, the phones that we carry around now, have great cameras. Just take a lot of pictures and choose the best one.
Nice, thank you, Brandy. That's very true. The story is definitely being told by pictures. So here's another question, and this is for you, Mark. This is from Megan. All my business comes from word of mouth. Where is the first place I should start?
Well, Meg, I think
she was listening to you when you said that. So
yeah, this is I would say it's the most common. Look, I'm a huge fan of word of mouth, and so when I hear this from people, it's not like, oh, there it is again. It's actually a really, really, really good thing, because it means you do great business, right? It means you do good work, and people want to send their friends to you. And I think when we say word of mouth, there is a badge of honor that should be given to that. I think what we forget, though, is that when we hear somebody say word of mouth, how many people were referred to us? Like, for instance, if you guys go on like Oregon City Chit Chat or Canby Now or the Facebook and Gresham, and somebody's reaching out and saying, hey, who do you guys recommend? That's word of mouth referrals, right? it's not just one person. There's like 17 people that get mentioned. So how do they pick the 17? Like they're going to pick one of them probably. My answer, Megan, is you should start where if I clicked your name, what's my experience going to be? And do you think that that's on par with the professionalism that you want to represent your brand?
Good. Thank you. And now there's a question from Rick to Brandy. In terms of including links, does that improve the ranking of the post or the relevance of the post?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on Instagram, we know that we can't include a live link except for on your profile or bio. So most often that is directly to your website, or maybe it's to your Calendly. On Facebook and LinkedIn, we can include live links. And what do I mean by a live link? A live link is a link that somebody can move their mouse over or their finger over, and it opens up to that page or that site. And if you do that on Facebook or on LinkedIn, make sure that live link takes them to somewhere you want them to be. In other words, that live link moves the person off of Facebook into your world, into your website, or an article you've written, or a video that you had created and now it's on YouTube, or you made it. And then another way you can do it that I recommend, because we've all heard that Facebook poo-poos it when we put a live link as the post. So what I like to do to get around that is I do the post with an image, and then I do all the copy, that's the written portion, and then I put the live link in the first comment. So that kind of works around Facebook not liking you, moving people off the platform. So I hope that answers the question. If not, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. All right, another question for Mark. I don't use a website. It's from Lynn. I don't use a website because I have a Facebook page. I've been criticized for that. What do you think?
Well, Brandy's in the room, so I shouldn't say you should be criticized for that. No, obviously we need Facebook, we need Instagram, we need to be where our audience is. But do I feel like they they replace a website? No, it's 2020, and I think the reason, Lynn, why you're being criticized is just because people want that sense of professionalism. Like I said in my 15 minutes, this is really, I mean, we shouldn't look at a website as just a place for contact information. I used to hear that way more than I do now because people are realizing the importance of it. But it used to be like, well, I don't need a new website. They just go on there to get my phone number. No, they don't go on there to get your phone number. They go on there to get an impression of who you are, to see if you're worth the phone call. And so Facebook, unfortunately, Brandy does a great job of making everybody's Facebook page stand out in different ways that represent the brand, right? Like you were talking about with Food Bank. But I think a website can do that in a way that no other thing can, because it's uniquely, holistically you.
Right. Okay. And then we got another question here from Lisa. Mark, where is a good place to start in creating your territory goal and cost for ads?
So generally speaking, a small business should look at a budget on Google at about $750. That's a good starting point. Typically, if I don't know the industry and I don't know the territory, that's just a good number to get somebody prepared for. But there are tools through Google, and all agencies have access to them. In fact, we resell Google, but really all we are is kind of a manager of it. You can sign up for a Google account if you want as well and have access to these tools too. But what you need to do is, or what I would do is we formulate, Callie and I will formulate like a keyword list that you're going to go for. And then we're going to look at adding city after city after city until we get into the budget range that you're comfortable with. Or we're going to work backwards and we're going to say, okay, these are your cities. Here's the deep end of the pool. If you want to be number one in all of these cities, it's going to be X dollars, and they're not comfortable with that. Then we just prioritize that list of cities and start cutting them off until we get into a budget range that the client is comfortable with. But whichever way you go, whether you're working into your budget or whether you're working kind of like down to your budget, make sure you're having that conversation with your agency, because so many people will just say, where do you want to be? How much can you spend? They put those two things together and you never see your ad. And the reason you never see your ad is because that was never math that was customized for you. It was simply, what's the most you're willing to give us? And what do I have to say I'm going to do in order to take the money?
Good, good. And now we have another questions that keep coming, which is awesome. So another one, this is from Amanda, and she's saying, I always stay away from political posts on my professional social media account. However, I'm curious, with all that is going on in our current political climate, what are your thoughts around voicing social justice issues and taking a stand one way or another? It's a hot topic. We probably should do a webinar just on that, especially, with what's going on. But would you like to venture, Brandy, in a less than a minute answer?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And it's one that I struggled with this week, especially for clients for whom I make content. And they're very busy. They want me to make that decision. Don't call them about it. And I don't blame them. And it's a tough one. And a lot of it depends on your heart. It depends on maybe the purpose for your business. For example, a big reason I'm in business is to be able to give back to organizations that help women build their lives, like women in trades and such. And so I did a post about that now my business is at a point where I can consistently give a percentage of my revenue to them. And to me, that both spoke to the causes that we're looking at, and I took a little bit of a middle ground, but that was a personal decision, and it really is up to you. But just be prepared for either reaction. In other words, you might be really niching down to people who will absolutely agree with you, or you might be really already working with people who agree with you, and they might be really appreciative of you taking a stand and sharing where you're at. It's a really, really tough decision. I'll give you an example of two different accounting firms. They're both clients of mine. One accounting firm that does accounting and taxes, they are at a point in their business where they can pick and choose who's a new client and who isn't. They can fire clients that haven't been nice to them. They have the culture that they want and plenty of business, and that's the position they're in after years and years of working very hard. Another CPA, another accounting firm, who's a brand new CPA and a client, she doesn't have that privilege. She hasn't been in business that long, and she really can't say no to anybody. They are going to have two very different answers on where they come down on that position or that very question. In other words, do they want to take the risk? Is it a risk? Some people would say, even that question, how can you call it a risk? I mean, we could go on and on, but ultimately it's got to be something you're comfortable with, whatever the outcome is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you can sleep at night. That's really what matters. If you can't sleep at night because you haven't taken a stance, or you couldn't sleep at night because you did and it upset some people, that might be your answer.
Thank you. Yeah, and if I can add to that, we have just whatever you post out there, it's also, don't get into a confrontation and a too back and forth on things that other people might not agree with you, because that makes it even worse on your own on your professional page, because that will alienate people no matter what. So just keep it professional. That will be my advice, right, Brandy? That's what you always tell people.
It is, yeah.
Good. And one final question that came through from Jenny. So she's asking, it's actually a question for me, in terms of how do you keep people accountable, some tips how to keep people accountable when you're working away, when you're working remotely. The answer to that one would be, utilize the tools that you have. You have to make sure that you have more communication, not less, right? But the thing that I've seen is that it can be also abuse the lines of communications that we have. So you can get onto emails back and forth, or texting or calling. So you have to really define what is your communication policy. What lines of communications are you using? So for instance, you can use Slack. What do you use Slack for? What do you use email for? What do you use texting for? When do you actually jump on a Zoom meeting? We all heard about a Zoom fatigue and too much Zoom and too many Zoom calls. Ask yourself, before you jump onto the Zoom call, ask yourself the question, is this something that I would really do in real life, like really have an in-person meeting for this, or would a 2-minute phone call would be enough? If 2 minutes, but also the other way around, if you want to have a meeting and 2-minute phone call is not enough, especially when you're rushing and you do need to schedule that call in order for you to keep your team accountable and discuss things, then schedule a call for that. So my answer to that will be to have a very clear communication plan on when you're communicating to your team, how often, and for what purpose, and include that accountability in there in terms of like, on this meeting, we're gonna check on this, this, and that. On our monthly meeting or our weekly meeting, we're gonna check on those points. So you have to make sure that it's very clear expectations of what are you gonna do in each one of those meetings to make sure that you're actually holding your team accountable and you are discussing those topics that to keep accountable. So I hope that answered the question. And I think I saw, do we have anything else? Thank you. Okay, good. So thank you. Well, thank you all. I think this is it for the questions that we got. So definitely thank you all for attending. And it was a pleasure having you here. Here is our contact information if you'd like to reach any of us. And also please fill out the survey. And with that, Mark, Brandy, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks,
it was
everybody.
Always a pleasure and having all the information. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.